So we are now joined by the Chief Constable for Derbyshire Constabulary, Rachel Swan. Really important for me as the Commissioner to listen to your questions and to make sure that we are sharing those questions with the Chief Constable to understand her perspective, but to also share straight from yourselves what you want to hear from her. So I'm not going to take any more time. Thank you very much for joining us, Chief. I will start the questions because there are quite a few to get through. So our first question is, Long Eaton seems to be blighted by antisocial behaviour at the moment. You can't walk into a town centre without seeing groups of people drinking or taking drugs. I've reported drugs and alcohol occurring on my street and nothing seems to be done about it. It's becoming a horrible place to live. How will you ensure that this is a priority for the police and that this issue gets the funding and attention it so desperately needs?
Okay, so first it's probably worth saying you and I talk about antisocial behaviour quite a lot, and the number of questions that we get does reflect public perception around antisocial behaviour. And obviously you've been speaking with Michelle around recorded antisocial behaviour is down, but the perception is still high.
Yes.
And this is why every year when we go through what are the operational priorities for the force, we keep antisocial behaviour up there. So I wanted to say that to give people some reassurance that even though the statistics will say it's low, it's the perception, because that then links to feelings of safety. So it remains a force priority, and that's the first thing I'd say. Long Eaton and the issues that are Long Eaton are something that are known to me. And I think we've had a couple of questions within this around that. The Safer Neighbourhood team are working really hard, and I would encourage you to look on Facebook because they're giving updates and they're doing a sort of Christmas targeted operation. And I was speaking to Michelle earlier and she was saying that actually there've been a number of proactive arrests trying to make a real difference in that community because they're feeling the difference, they're feeling some of the effects around it. So just in terms of more specifics, so Safer Neighbourhood team regularly review their priorities, and antisocial behaviour is up there, and it's to give you some reassurance with it. It includes antisocial behaviour, but also youth crime in open spaces and disrupting the supply and distribution of controlled substances, which is what this person mentioned is. So their focus is on actively patrolling the open spaces across the whole of Long Eaton to provide reassurance to the public in terms of where you see us, which obviously it gives people feelings of safety, but also it's a visible deterrent to deter the antisocial behaviour in itself. They will be targeting individuals who persist in behaving in a manner that causes others to fear the use of the space, because obviously we want people to feel safe in public spaces and in their own homes, and it's important that we deal with that. So we will be taking positive action, and as I say, if you look on Facebook, their Safer Neighbourhood team page, they're updating what they're doing as they're going along with that. So they will use positive action for a number of means. So it could be traditional arrests, high-profile patrols, as I mentioned, community protection notice warnings, building evidence for criminal behaviour orders, displacing people with public space protection orders, or arresting people for criminal offences, or indeed offering support through other partner agencies. And on occasions, it's appropriate to give some deterrence or some intervention to help give people other things to do in terms of rather than persist with antisocial behaviour in the area. So. The Long Eaton team, when we spoke to them around what were they doing, they wanted to give some positive examples of the work that they have been doing to give that reassurance. So they've recently worked on a successful initiative on reducing antisocial behaviour around Waverley Street in Long Eaton. We were receiving large volumes of reports regarding groups of young people drinking and using recreational substances, which was obviously problematic for residents. So we issued dispersal orders, community protection notice warnings, and traffic reports to take positive action on the group. This has led to a reduction in reports about this problem, and officers have seen a visible difference when attending the area. Most recently, a residential street became a hotspot for this type of behaviour, and so thus the team were committed to more intensive work in there and mirroring the work that they did around Waverley Street. They've been in contact with Erewash Borough Council to discuss revising the public space protection order boundaries and extending it to include that. And in the interim, the repeat offenders will be issued with community protection notice warning to manage their behaviour. The team are well briefed on the hotspot areas and the repeat offenders, which they are focusing their patrols and their activities on. And then finally, in relation to drug use, the team are targeting the supply into the Long Eaton area for the purposes of reducing how readily available controlled substances are, and therefore to reduce their usage. They're actively pursuing individuals and the networks involved in that, and obviously utilising other resources within the constabulary to support them in doing it. And it focuses on gathering local intelligence and then carrying out proactive enforcement and operations targeting dealers. So recent activity has led to multiple seizures and arrests relating to the supply of cannabis, heroin and cocaine, and the efforts will continue with further operations planned. But just to reiterate what was said earlier, please report to us. If you want to use online rather than 101, then to put intelligence in, please do, because it helps us build up a picture. And don't assume that we know about it already. You need to keep telling us so we can continue to target the areas that are causing you most concern.
Okay. No, thank you. Our next question is around antisocial behaviour and noise. Every weekend, bank holiday, and during the week, there are motorbikes on the A6 between Rowsley and Bakewell. I hope I pronounced that well, which are making extremely excessive noises, which is surely antisocial behaviour from the residents' perspective. This is a question from a resident in Derbyshire Dales.
So this consistently comes up in terms of loud exhaust. And, we're talking Bakewell area here, but often it can come in other parts of the Dales. So the roads policing team work really closely with our local colleagues, Crest, which is the casualty reduction enforcement support team, and Bike Safe, who deal with motorcycle safety, to make the roads safer for all of us. And their key focus is around the fatal four, so driving down deaths and killed or serious injury collisions on the road. The exhausts on motorcycles are really frustrating because they do cause disturbance, but they're not specifically linked to road casualties, so they're not part of the fatal four. So it's also really difficult to prosecute against it for the level of noise. And that said, we do realise the impact that it does have on people. So if we come across a particularly noisy exhaust, we challenge the rider, and there are cases where we will require them to have it modified if it reaches above a certain level. But I do appreciate it's a nuisance, which is why we try to be proactive around it. And whilst this isn't one of the fatal four, we do understand at certain times of the year, and it generally tends to be in the summer as well, there'll be more around Matlock, Bath and areas like that. So we go and have much more of a presence and try and target it. Okay. So that whilst it's difficult for us to enforce, we do endeavour to do so, but also we do a lot to educate and, where we can, ask people to modify their exhausts.
Okay. In terms of the public sharing intelligence on that, so for example, if someone were to note a number plate, is that something that they could then do? Actually, this car is particularly noisy, we've managed...
By all means, put it through, because as I've said earlier, the more intelligence we have, the more it builds up a picture. It helps us build up, if there are specific people that are persisting in this type of behaviour of this specific location. So we would always encourage that.
Okay, no, thank you. The next question is from a resident in South Derbyshire. I find that there are quite a lot of young men riding around on either illegal e-bikes or motorbikes and wearing hoods and face masks. In one case during the summer, I saw a man in a full face mask. How he could see to ride seems impossible. I'm very concerned about this. It is more and more prevalent lately. During the summer, I was in the US shopping centre, and there was a number of sensible requirements of shoppers, one of which was hoods are okay, but a face must not be covered. What are your thoughts on that?
So, as was covered earlier, we do act really proactively where there are reports of e-scooters, mopeds where people shouldn't be riding them. We've had really good successes in it. E-bikes, slightly more difficult in terms of they needed to be over a certain power in order to deal with them. But where people are riding them in the manner they shouldn't, we will deal with it proactively. And in riding e-bikes, for example, appropriate headgear should be worn at all times. Same with a motorbike. It is an offence not to do so, and one which we would enforce if it is a motor vehicle of that nature. Illegal e-bikes where the pedals have been bypassed and run without fully pedalling are stopped and seized, because obviously that's not the nature in which they were designed and can be dangerous. And likewise, we have the problem management plan in place around the use of illegal e-bikes as well, because obviously you and I have talked a lot in terms of the stuff we've done with e-scooters, and then actually then what emerges is actually there's an issue with e-bikes as well, which is why we've been more proactive with it and we've seized more. In terms of face coverings, it's really different. I can't speak for legislation or guidance within the US. Clearly here we would be asking people around to be wearing the appropriate headgear for safety, covering the face in that circumstance. It's not an offence, but if somebody couldn't see, then it's something we might intervene to advise them so that they can see where they're going and not cause danger to other people.
Okay. So in that particular case, would that be something that he would be, I guess it sounds like he's asking our perspective, but is that, again, just an intelligence that you would expect the public to share if it was associated with?
Yes, if they're seeing all this nuisance behaviour,
yes.
And actually, for instance, if you've got a congregation of people where e-bikes, e-scooters and the face coverings, we want to know about it because
yes.
we want to be targeting the activity they're doing.
Yes.
And then we can identify who the people are involved by doing that.
No, brilliant. Thank you. We have a question here from a resident in Amber Valley. My worry is the atrocious lack of PPE, personal protective equipment. These officers, especially PCSOs, have very little or no PPE at all. If these officers are to deal with antisocial behaviour, some of which may be violent, they don't have the means to protect themselves, let alone me as a member of the public. Just to say that PCSOs are just there to reassure the public of a police presence, to him, is an absolute scandal that we put officers and the public alike at such a distinct disadvantage. And it says here, verging on criminal and against health and safety regulations. So the question here from the resident in Amber Valley is around what are we doing to give PCSOs the right equipment that they need?
So let me be really clear. Derbyshire Constabulary have a duty under health and safety for the welfare of all of our employees in compliance with legislation, and we are compliant with that legislation. We take the health and safety of the employees really carefully. So officers and staff, the roles that they do are all risk assessed and they are given appropriate training and equipment, and that includes personal protective equipment, and the training to use that equipment commensurate with the role that they undertake. In terms of PCSOs, this includes PCSOs, and it covers the risks that PCSOs are exposed to and the control measures that are in place to mitigate these risks. We need to be really clear around the difference between PCSOs and police officers and the use of police powers and the use of force, who sits with who, because obviously there's a difference in terms of the risk that they undertake and different the activity they undertake. Mm-hmm. So all PCSOs are given a personal issue protective stab vest and are in possession of force issue radio to request immediate assistance if required. They are trained in defensive techniques to enable them to protect themselves and to support warranted police officers with restraint should it be required. And this is in line with the curriculum determined by the College of Policing based on the role profile of PCSOs and the designated powers that they have. PCSOs do not have warranted powers as police officers do, and so they don't fall under the category of an authorised individual. And that means under law, they cannot carry equipment such as a baton or parva spray. All Derbyshire police officers are equipped with personal issue vest, stab vest, radio, handcuffs, limb restraints, parva and baton as a minimum. Officers trained in both defensive and offensive techniques, which equips them with skills to protect themselves and the public. Clearly, some officers are equipped with taser, and then we have our highly trained police officers who are equipped with firearms, and all of that is in accordance with the authorised professional practice as designated by the College of Policing.
Okay. So in terms of his concerns there, you know, we in Derbyshire are very much compliant with everything that PCSOs should have. And if there is a scenario where he feels that that isn't the case, you know, he should really, well, we're definitely trying to reassure him today that we're in line with the national guidance, and here in Derbyshire that we put our PCSOs and all of our staff obviously first and make sure that they are safe and protected in the work that they do. I wonder if there's a scenario where he has felt that that was the case. And I guess if from a casework perspective, if you feel that there is a scenario where that something has happened and someone may have, or you feel that someone may have been ill-equipped, that you report that to us and then share the intelligence, so that we are aware? Because I'm not aware of anything that's come through my casework in that regard either, so I can't shed any light on that.
I would want to reiterate that we also have in place, it's not a number of recording systems for people to report where there's been an issue in terms of health and safety, and that includes near misses, so where people, officers or staff, feel they were not equipped for the situation.
Okay.
And we look at those proactively and say, right, what do we need to do? And to give an example, some of the officer protection training, each year we look at where there has been incidents where officers and staff might have been assaulted or something happened, and we look at where we need to change the curriculum in terms of training based on what's happening to our officers and staff. So I just want to reiterate, the safety and well-being of officers and staff is of extreme importance. Forget the health and safety legislation, it is of extreme importance. And we do all that we can to make sure we comply with what we need to in terms of health and safety, but more importantly, so that they feel equipped and trained to deal with the threats that they face.
No, thank you for that. The next question we have is from a resident in Bolsover. Why do we not see the regular presence of a police constable beat officer that we can get to know? We want to be able to trust them, for us to know us and to trust us also. We do occasionally see the local PCSO, but I believe that the old-fashioned way of beat officer policing would be more beneficial for both the police and the community in general.
So, for the past 5 years since I've been chief, I have maintained and increased safer neighbourhood team numbers because I am a real believer in the benefit of safer neighbourhood teams that are established, that are known to their communities and are there to deal with the problems that face the communities. And that has not changed, and that is not changing for the future. Bolsover has a safer neighbourhood teams, it has officers and PCSOs. They are well established within Bolsover, and they've worked in the area for several years, which is, what has been intimated. They hold regular engagement events within the community that are very well advertised and well attended in places such as the marketplace. So it's not asking people to come to us, but going to them. Or they also do them outside Morrison's supermarkets. There may be other supermarkets available, so that they can meet people. And they held one 28th of October is the dates I've got here. Details of community catch-up events can be found online or on the Force Facebook page. And again, I would encourage you to look on the Facebook page because it will tell you all the events that they go to, where they are, and if you need to get hold of them and how to speak to them. Likewise, it will tell you very clearly who they are. And as I say, they've been established for many years. So I appreciate that this person may not feel there is a regular presence of a police constable in Bolsover because may not have seen them. But it doesn't mean that they haven't been there, and I would encourage you to really look so that you can see where the patrols have been, which, we say what we've been doing and we tell people where we have been, because I think people get confidence from thinking, oh, well, they have been in my community, they have been here, and they are speaking to people. And likewise, we've touched upon ASB, and Michelle referred to it as Opshango, which is the hotspot patrols. Bolsover also benefits from those regular hotspot patrols as well to increase visibility there from other resources across the force.
Yeah. And I know as part of the neighbourhood guarantee that was rolled out in July, if you don't know who your S&T teams are, if you go onto Derbyshire Constabulary website, onto the Your Area page and type in your postcode, you'll be able to see the pictures of all of the team and how to contact them. If you contact them via that avenue, I know it will be 72 hours, you give them 72 hours to get back to you. So really trying to strengthen that visibility and access to officers and SNTs. And, things move on, but neighbourhood policing is really, really important to residents and really important to my office, and I know the constabulary as well. So if you don't know who those people are, and that goes to anyone across the whole of the city and county, please go onto the website, type in your postcode in the Your Area page, and you will see who the people that make up your Safer Neighbourhoods team are and how to contact them, and also the events that they'll be putting on, so that you can attend or indeed get in touch. We have a question from a resident in North East Derbyshire. I do not feel safe in the village due to the gangs of young men staying at the Sandpiper Hotel. I feel unable to walk my dogs anymore on the Peak Resort as they hang around there. I must add that I would feel the same way if it was any group of males loitering around there, British or immigration. The village has always been pretty free of antisocial behaviour as I've lived here all of my life.
Okay, so the local Safer Neighbourhood team continues to work proactively in the area to provide reassurance and maintain community safety. We do appreciate that some of the hotels, asylum seeker hotels, can certainly bring a perception of ASB and affect feelings of safety, and we understand that. So we proactively patrol those areas in order to try to reassure the public, and we work with other partners if there are instances of antisocial behaviour that need to be tackled, and I'd like to give that reassurance. I do, we remain in regular contact with the accommodation provider, and we monitor all reports of antisocial behaviour in the area, which currently remains low. We do understand, though, that any group loitering, can create that sense of fear, regardless of the background. It can feel intimidating. So we do take these concerns seriously. And if you do witness any specific incidents, please report it, because, as I say, current reporting is low. But as I said right at the start, numbers can be low, but perception is high. And that's why we listen and we try to provide that reassurance, even in that instance, such as this.
Okay. Thank you. We have a question from Derby City. Since COVID, visible policing in Derby City has reduced to zero, with the exception of match days when there are countless officers deployed. You could conclude football fans are a very high threat level to the public. Why not restrict football supporters from entering the city and put the saved resource to improve day-to-day policing? If they are not a threat, why is a huge police presence necessary?
So firstly, I would like to say that Derby City Centre, there is a large presence of visible policing. They patrol every day and they work proactively within the community to deal with the concerns there. In the summer, we had some concerns in terms of feelings of safety in city centre, and we have taken that very seriously, and we have increased patrols, increased proactivity, listened to the public, and it is a very high visible presence. So, and we've been doing this with support of Derby City partners as well, in terms of working to address what might be effective feelings of safety. In relation to football and match days, that's a very specific policing operation. And part of what we do is around what we need to do at the ground, but also you need resource in terms of where fans might be on the day before they go to the match. We wouldn't be able to restrict people entering the city. It would be, it would be impossible. It's not something that is within our gift to do. So what we try to do is police it and minimise the impact that it has on local communities by having that football match. And that's the intention of the policing operation. Of course, I would like those resources to be elsewhere, patrolling our communities. But policing football is one of the things that we do. And, the football club is, or the football clubs, I should say, are a big part of our communities within Derbyshire. And as part of that, we police them, we police the matches accordingly. So, and many people will enjoy, what they get from supporting the clubs within the county. So, restricting people is not something that we could do or would have the authority to do. But obviously, managing resources is something that I need to do on a daily basis.
Okay. So we have another question from Erewash. What are you doing with local policing on keeping women and children safe in the area? With the ongoing pandemic of violence, which has been seen locally in Ilkeston, and recent assaults on women by strangers, how are you teaching and supporting local police forces to protect women and children? And do you believe that local officers are trained to the best standard possible to help protect us?
So violence against women and girls is a priority for policing and a priority for all of us. It's everyone's business to tackle. VORG, to put it in its shorter version, is a priority of the force and has been a priority force for a number of years, and it encompasses a huge number of offences. people want to feel safe when they're out in public, and they want to feel safe in their houses. And we know that violence against women and girls happens in both of those settings. There is a partnership violence against women and girls strategy, because obviously safety in public spaces is not simply the police's business. And we remain committed to making women and girls feel safer in those public places, as well as tackling safety within private. So in terms of Ilkeston Safer Neighbourhood Teams, for example, they ran a Safer Towns initiative in the summer, and they have one coming up in the winter, and this will increase foot patrols in the town centre. And very specifically, we look at, particularly when it comes to evening events, people might be out, we brief officers to identify where there may be vulnerable people, vulnerable women who, in the night, for instance, in the nighttime economy, and try to intervene to get them to places of safety. Because we train all officers and we brief accordingly on those events to look at those signs of vulnerability. We also run joint events where violence against women and girls groups have been available to speak to the public as well. The local policing team, because obviously the question came from Erewash, remain in regular communication with Erewash Community Safety Partnership in order to promote issues surrounding VORG and safety. So VORG is not a new issue, and policing has recognised that it needs to do a lot more to tackle it. And this is both in terms of the activities we take, but also the activities we take internally within the force, so that there is a cultural shift, ensuring that it's tackled in such a way that violence against women and girls becomes abhorrent rather than being an accepted social norm. And domestic abuse, for example, makes up a very large proportion of recorded crime within all forces. So to this effect, we use the youth engagement team who go into schools and deliver inputs on things such as misogyny, unacceptable behaviour towards women, what healthy relationships look like. And we try to target this as well in terms of the threats to behaviour that can emerge from online and online content, and how people might be influenced by that as well. Because we're very aware that all of this requires a multi-agency response. It's not policing's job alone. We have an important role in it, but it's not policing's job alone to tackle violence against women and girls. That's why I said right at the start, there is a partnership strategy to try to tackle this, to make best effect within it. And internally, within our own current training programmes for student officers, we train in accordance with the College of Policing's national curriculum requirements. There's obviously a lot of work on VORG and VORG-related offences, and then there's a lot of continuous professional development within the organisation to make sure that people are best equipped to recognise the signs of violence against women and girls and to tackle them appropriately to deal with the threat that it causes.
Okay. We have another question from a resident in North East Derbyshire. Why is antisocial behaviour not taken seriously nor investigated adequately? Derbyshire Police appear to be failing at the most basic hurdle for any report each and every time.
And, it's disappointing to hear questions like that. Well, we've talked extensively in terms of what we do to tackle antisocial behaviour, but as I've said repeatedly throughout, even if the numbers are low, if the perception is that we're not tackling it, then there is more that we can do. So, as has been outlined and was outlined earlier by Michelle, we do an awful lot of work to tackle antisocial behaviour. It remains a priority for us. We use the funding that we have from the government to conduct hotspot patrols, so in the key areas where we're seeing ASB reported, to provide that visible presence using methodology that works in terms of time and place where the officers are there. And it has been a success, and it has reduced antisocial behaviour. Whoever put the question down, I would just encourage them that if they are seeing areas of ASB that we're not tackling, encourage them to report it so that we can do something about it. But I just would like to reiterate, it is a priority. We are proactively dealing with it, and we will continue to do so.
So we have 3 more questions. One from North East Derbyshire again, and another from Derbyshire Dales, and the last one will be from a resident in Chesterfield. So for the last 3 questions, we're going to start with this one. A major issue for community safety in our area is the impact of pavement parking on pedestrian safety. We need a zero tolerance approach to pavement parking. Will the Chief Constable please direct that all pavement parking is deemed an obstruction by definition and so liable to prosecution?
Okay, so parking is a concern that comes up when we go out and do surveys within neighbourhoods, and often people will raise parking with us. So first off, thank you for taking the time to contact us with this. So parking on pavements can be an issue for many, including those with pushchairs or those who may have restricted mobility, because it does cause a real issue for people. But just to be clear, as it currently stands outside of London, there is no specific law to prohibit parking on pavements. But where the parking on pavement coincides with other enforceable issues, the police will deal with it. So there are certain things that I can do, but there are other things I can't do as Chief Constable, which was the ask of me at the start. Mm-hmm. So currently, the local council will deal with limited waiting bays, double and single yellow lines, on-street bays, display bays, residence parking zones, etc., etc., etc. So a big area they will deal with. Derbyshire Police will deal with illegal parking where the vehicle is parked on zigzag lines, dangerously, or in a way that would prevent emergency vehicles from accessing. So other areas that I've mentioned, and things like loading bays, school keep clears, etc., they're with the council. Those three areas are the ones that are with the police that we will deal with, and it would normally be our safer neighbourhood teams who would deal with it.
Okay. No, thank you for that clarification. We have a question here from Derbyshire Dales, as mentioned. Why are the police unable to control boy racers and cruising motorbikes, especially around that Matlock area? We hear them all evening, often after midnight.
Okay, so I mentioned this earlier that we,
Yes.
Understand Matlock and Matlock Bath can be something that causes an issue in terms of nuisance motorbikes. So we are working with local officers and the local inspector to try to reduce the problems that you highlight. And I'll go through some of the methods that we're utilising. So speed sites with officers stood at the side of the road or mobile. And at this site, we have devices that are capable of disabling vehicles should they choose not to stop for us. Static camera vans that park in the various identified locations. And these are usually positioned by collision data or user request or complaint. So again, I would encourage that if this is a specific issue in your area, please report it to us, because then we can build up the complaints in that area, and then we can utilise the resources in it. Static speed cameras, which obviously are around. Community speed watch. We get great help from members of the local community assisting us in detecting speeders. Drones. We do use our drones teams to identify and follow speeding motorcyclists and vehicles, because obviously often motorcycles will go in places that we can't easily drive or follow. The drone is an excellent way of tracking those vehicles and seeing where they end up in a way that is safe for everybody concerned. So we do that proactively. We've got some in-car systems. So we've got some speed detection kit fitted in all of our roads policing vehicles. We have a team of police motorcyclists who have on-road and off-road bikes, and we use them to target areas where we have complaint. There's a number of campaigns we carry out throughout the year. We also speak to local authorities around designing out some of the issues that can be caused. So lobbying for certain traffic calming measures as well in areas where there's high number of issues around this. And also we do a lot around bike safe, which is an educational session for motorcyclists to try to educate them in terms of how they might ride that cause less of a nuisance and less of a harm to themselves. So it is an issue. We are proactively dealing with it, and we do recognise it's a residual issue, so that's why we continue to tackle it.
Okay. Our last question is from a resident in Chesterfield, and their question is, what is being done to stop speeders in family areas and residential areas, I assume?
Okay, so we have a roads policing team that are well equipped, and speeding is one of the issues that they deal with, but also we have our colleagues within the Casualty Reduction Enforcement Support Team, known as CREST. And this is around making the roads safer for all, and we work within the Road Safety Partnership in the county. So our key focus is around driving down the fatal four offences, which, just as a reminder, are phones, speed, drink and drugs offences, and seatbelt offences. So I'll give you a flavour of some of the things that we're doing, which is working with local officers and local inspectors to try to reduce the problems. So I've covered a couple of these before. So speed sights with officers stood at the side of the road or mobile, static camera vans that go to various identified locations throughout the county, static speed cameras, community speed watch, drones, we also use them for this type of behaviour, in-car systems that we have in terms of fitted for our roads policing vehicles, motorcyclists, deploying them proactively to tackle the issues, campaigns, so national campaigns to target the criminal use of roads, speed, young drivers, uninsured drivers, two-wheel operations and drink drive. Designing out the problem, as I've spoken about before, and bike safe, because we do have a risk in the county where we have a lot of killed or serious injured road traffic collisions with bikers. So there is a big partnership approach, and throughout the year there are campaigns throughout the year to tackle issues that cause safety on the road. And so you'll see on the run up to Christmas we specifically run a drink drive campaign targeting that type of behaviour, knowing that it can be more prevalent during the festive season.
Okay. No, thank you very much for sharing all the work that's happening in that space. I guess for that resident who has submitted the question, it is really around that intelligence picture and reporting, so that we know what sort of interventions the police can then deploy in those particular areas based on the volume and the issues that are being raised with the community. So I suppose if there's something that's happening in your particular area, to encourage residents in the area to also report that, so that the police are aware. Again, it's also really easy for people to assume that the police already know, or the neighbours have already complained about it or indeed reported it. So please try to do the same in terms of reporting it yourselves, because often I will go to community groups and people say, oh, this is a long-standing issue. And when I look at the figures, sometimes the amount of complaints or indeed concerns raised in that forum don't reflect the level of information we have as a force in order to act and respond and make sure that the resources are going into the right places. So please do, we always encourage people to report.
Yes. And there are a number of ways in which you can do it. It's emergency, it's always 999. There is 101, but we have an excellent 24/7 DigiDesk that is staffed by people who will deal with your answer very, very promptly. And so I would encourage and really plug that use of contact. It's a really quick and efficient way to contact us and get the information into us.
Brilliant. No, thank you very much to Chief Constable Rachel Swan. Thank you very much for joining us today and for answering all the questions from the public. Thank you also to Assistant Chief Constable Michelle Shooter for coming in and giving us an overview on all the work that's being done to tackle and reduce antisocial behaviour and make sure that we strengthen community safety across our county. As I said at the beginning, we have a detailed report for you all to have a look at. Look at the data, understand the work that's going into making sure that your priority is our priority and that you can see the work and the data that reflects what we're doing here. But also this podcast and this opportunity for us to do this in a slightly informal way is so that residents can also have an opportunity to listen to the work that we are doing. And we are just really grateful for your questions and for the people that always tune in. Please continue to tune in and continue to share it with other residents, neighbours, so that we give everyone an opportunity to ask us questions, but also understand all the work that we're doing at Derbyshire Constabulary and in my office at the OPCC. Thank you very much. Until next time.